as it stands, the recording bot is being overloaded. But that's okay. Do we want to just carry on, or do we have some alternative solution to recording this?
What do you mean overloaded?
Too many people using it at once.
It's just like a global thing.
Right.
So, yeah, that's my idea, right? We can take away the captain's ability to valid hunt as long as all the heads are protected by a specific role. Of course, this comes with the question: what if there's no blue shield officer, and then there's a captain? Maybe it's low pop, right?
Yeah. Like
Then,
today, I was captain, and there was no security at all.
so that would default to how captain normally can operate. But the goal in the long term is with the thing like a blue shield officer is that they would be in charge of the head's protection, and then the heads therefore won't have to play like head of security. The head of security can play like head of security with the security team. That's the goal of the blue shield officer, and why I believe it's valuable to the game. Does anybody have any other additions?
Well, I think the goal is if there's capacity, then you should adapt and expand on the capacity you are given. So, for example, if you are a captain and there is a CMO, RD, HOS, CE, if you've got a whole suite of team, you don't have to do anything except make sure everything's, just be the captain. But if there's like no RD, no CE, no HOS, the captain's going to be expected to set up the engine. He's going to be expected to do research. He's going to be expected to do HOS stuff. Obviously, if there's no one available to take those positions, then he has to step up because he's the only one physically able to do that. So the whole point of it's capacity based. So if the captain has the ability to not have to worry about doing anything to do with antags, then that should be handed off to whoever it's their job to. Like if HOS turns up, captain shouldn't be doing anything antag related. If CMO turns up, they shouldn't be doing anything medical related. If C turns up, they should be doing the engine. You know what I mean? It's basically the captain is supposed to take the place of whatever the station is lacking. They shouldn't be doing stuff for anyone because they have the right to, because they have permission to. That's not how it's supposed to be. And I think,
Yeah.
is that about right?
That does sound about right. Jacobo asks, what if the captain is leading the charge of the raid? That's the goal, is that he's not going to be leading the charge of a raid, bar extreme circumstances,
that would be
right?
The HOS. If there's a HOS. If there's no HOS, then yes, the captain would probably... I would probably say if there's no HOS, then warden. If there's no warden, then yes, the captain can probably take some leadership over it. But like
Oliver
I said, it depends
asks,
on capacity.
Oliver asks, is the captain allowed to lead BSA setup and whatnot? Yeah, so that's what we're talking about in terms of the captain being an actual leader, an actual captain. BSA setup involves multiple departments, or things like the DNA vault will involve multiple departments. That's what we want the captain to lead. Not we want the captain to lead things like that, and less of the captain is leading the eradication of every vampire on the station and just exterminating them to dust. You see what I mean?
Yeah, or is like doing 3 Atmos techs jobs when they're all there, just sitting there like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
He's supposed to be looking at the station as a whole and doing the betterment of the whole station instead of a single selfish goal that he wants to do. The captain's supposed to be helping the station, not helping himself.
So, let's see. And then the last thing about, yes, hop purity will be even.
Oh.
You cut out.
Yep.
You good? Trip? Shrimp.
So first he doesn't turn up, and then he dies.
Really?
Right. Okay, so,
Does someone want to give him the role so he can talk again?
Well, he should have it.
He muted himself.
This is funny.
Hop Purity killed Moja.
Right.
Someone give him an extra role so he can speak.
There you go. How's that? Does that work, Trent? What about now?
Oh shit.
Yeah,
Yep.
you should be able to speak. You've got.
Okay.
He's
There we go.
I think Discord's is like literally just shitting its pants. It says
you muted yourself.
No, yeah, I wasn't. I was not. I didn't. It muted me. I don't know why, but Discord muted me, and I've been like connecting. Either way, it's fixed now. We're good. We can move on to the next question. Yeah,
We will be
Discord's
cracking down on Hopcurity. But Alex asked about if you are the captain, you have ordered a raid on cargo for the past 10-15 minutes, and security has done absolutely nothing because they are. You believe cargo to mostly be revs. You need mine shields ordered, and security has done nothing. When you are the captain, are you allowed after 15 minutes of screaming at security to finally do something yourself?
What, you should go arrest security for not doing their job.
Well, that would just tie into a whole mess of issues. That's just one of those like 10 player complaints waiting to happen that takes 2 months to solve. I would say the better solution to be if there's a circumstance and it is very clear that your security team is so incompetent, you might as well not have a security team. You need to err on the side of caution. But like if that's the case, I think the best option would be to help and just tell the admins on like the security team is so incompetent that I have to do the job for them, right? I don't want to give you a blanket answer of just like if the security team even is slightly incompetent, just do everything for them, because that's not the answer either. But especially when it comes to revs, like you have to act on revs. You can't just fucking twiddle your thumbs and hope everything turns out all right. Just talk to the admins online, like work with them, and chances are you'll be pretty much in the clear to do things like go into cargo, order things, because I know revs can go real bad real quick. One thing I'm just going to point this out because I've always wanted to talk about this. I think conversion name tags as a whole should probably take more time to convert. Right now, their exponential growth is kind of absurd, and that also prevents RP in a lot of ways. So, for example, there is no time to RP if a guy is flashing people at such a pace, or even multiple head revs flashing, that the entire crew turn to revs while you were trying to RP in the first 10 minutes. So that's personally a code change I would like to see, that all conversion and tags of all kinds get slightly toned down in the rate that they convert in order for rounds to be slower and allow people to actually roleplay. That's my take on the code side. Any suggestions?
That would have to be looked into code solution wise. I think we should crack on because there's still loads of questions we haven't even got to yet.
So the next one seems like an entirely code suggestion. Is there a schedule for merging PRs? Would a merge day where head coders go through to decide what the merge be considered? This is entirely code-based question. Please take that up in head dev public. I'm gonna move on.
I can just answer it quickly though. Usually,
Go on.
It's basically when I have time. Usually, I do it on the weekends because I usually have time. So there's usually a bunch of PRs merged on a Saturday or Sunday.
You also are heavily involved with like other bigger structural changes that are taking a lot of time.
Exactly.
So
it's basically when I can. But
yeah.
they're usually it's the weekend is when they're more concentrated.
The next question is, will town halls become a regular scheduled thing? As it stands, I would say a town hall can be done by any council who wants to do it, but the way I plan to do it is only for things that need a town hall. On certain other servers, just do town halls for the sake of doing town halls, and I'm not too familiar what they do in those circumstances, but I've always felt like a town hall should be something very critical. Like last time it was about RP and formulating ideas, and now it's about making sure everybody's on the same page for all these RP things we're talking about. I want town halls to be regular for important things, but they're not going to be done just for the sake of doing them. Does anybody have anything else I want to add?
Nope, town halls take a lot of time, just for important things only.
This is somebody asked this kind of a side question: Is Warden going to be Is Warden going to continue being officially considered second in command to the HOS, like decreed a while back? And if so, would that be reflected somewhat official, like in space law? You're probably dead on about this. That it probably should be reflected in space law if it's going to be a thing, and even if it's not a thing, it should also be reflected in space law. I have no opinion on that right now, but like I would like to get consensus on that and put that into space law so it's abundantly clear. Does anybody have anything to add about that?
Yeah, I mean, the Warden's probably he's been the de facto second command for a while, so.
I would say, yeah, how people treat him, he's second in command, but it's not technically official, so we can work towards adding in space law.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so complaints on the forums getting backed up again. Should there be a set time for handling complaints, or at least wait? We already made. Okay, so that's WUP again. We did talk about getting them auto assigned to staff members. We talked about giving them hours. We haven't specifically seen this issue get so egregious that we wanted to start assigning to people yet. Because assigning people to complaints, complaints take a lot of work, you know. There was a time that I was just powering through complaint after complaint, you know, but I don't have the time for that right now. I might do a few in a bit, but I guess we can do something like encourage staff to do it again. I'd really not want to pull the trigger on the auto assignment idea.
There's only 7. I don't call this backed up. There are some older ones, admittedly, but 7 to me isn't exactly straining.
Right. I mean, I took a look through them, and none of them, it hadn't gone too egregious quite yet. Anything to add to that?
It's definitely, sometimes it's not a problem at all, and then other times it is absurd how many complaints there are and how moldy they are. It all depends on the situation. When player complaints get really bad and they get moldy and no one's touching them with a 10-foot pole, council cracks down on that and makes sure they get done. Some complaints are just because of their nature are hard to do. Like when people make 10-player complaints, we try to be really thorough with complaints, so it's not like somebody just kind of makes things up, it's not investigated properly, and then they get banned for something that might have not legitimately happened.
So what happens
So they have to be really
now?
thorough, because
why?
I would say the only thing worse than a slow complaint is a complaint done improperly that results in people getting beamed for no reason. So you just have to be patient with complaints. I would like to talk on this subject about complaints. I would like to
revenge is not the
talk
Jedi
about
way,
complaints going
but the
forward in
Jedi
regards
be
to
removed from
RP.
as many military matters as possible.
I would say, with these RP changes, a lot of them are going because we're going to want these RP changes to happen even when there's no admins online. So I would say that you will be fine to make a complaint regarding some broken RP rule, but just know going forward that this is still experimental. Nothing is quite set in stone, and it can lead to things getting done, but quality your expectations. Like somebody being a little bit bad or role player is not going to lead to extreme bans, but you can make complaints going forward about the RP rules because we do want to see the changes happen, even on rounds with no admins.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, any questions on that? They're talking about something completely
There
different.
are
Cool.
a lot
Amazing.
of questions, so I think we need to just get cracking.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So next one. What exactly is allowed for knowledge of departments other than your own in these scenarios? Other departments being empty / super incompetent / racist against your game species. How does that have to do with knowledge of department? Clowns and mimes doing gimmicks such as dedicating their round to doing ghetto surgery. Everything is absolutely fucked. My character has a backstory explaining it. You might end up just dying if you don't do it. Cargo building a Tesla for a bounty because engineering doesn't want to help them. I'm trying to understand this question.
I can go ahead a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So, there's a lot of circumstances about this, and it is a circumstantial thing on like what is good going forward. So the goal is that everybody's gonna have a job. Oh, Tog wants Mike. Okay.
I'm giving it to him.
Okay, cool.
There you go.
I'll let you speak first, Tog.
He has it, but
Leave and come back. That should give you the speak perms.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So the basis of part of my question was, does intent matter when it comes to power gaming? Is there a difference of, and this is a scenario I saw. A mime set up a surgery table in the hallways, spray painted a sign, and that was his gimmick for the round. It wasn't him just doing surgery to give his buddy implants, and his buddy gives him implants, but that was his gimmick for the round. Is that still power gaming, and is that going to be punished, or can we look at things like that with a, he has good intent with it. He's not doing it just to gain an edge in the round. He's just doing it for the sake of doing it.
I would definitely say intent matters. Intent is almost everything in regards to this. So when it comes to gimmicks, like we are still wanting gimmicks, right? Gimmicks can also work with RP. Like that gimmick can add a lot to the round in terms of like having it be an engaging round. And that's a good gimmick, even if it technically involves a mime doing a skill he doesn't have. That could still be an IC issue. He could that could lead to maybe some sort of, I don't know, tussle with security, right? That's fine. That's good stuff happening in game. The goal of the rule is that people do their jobs and stick within their lane. We're saying that not they'll just kill off any gimmick, like the mime is technically leaving his lane, but that's a fun thing. The goal is to really clamp down on people going so far out of their lane that it actually detracts from the round, right? Like for example, like if you just nullify medbay by being a one-man army, just no matter what your role is, just having every heal, everything, building your own chems to make your own chems, just nullifying medbay's existence, that actually detracts from their round and the round as a whole. That's not good. So intent absolutely matters in this situation. I would say the default enforcement is you should stick within your job, but sometimes it's iffy with like weird jobs like mime and clown, right? They usually, for them to be engaging, they have to do some sort of gimmick, right? And that's fine. This rule represents a lot of situations. Sorry, was somebody going to talk?
I was going to say the way I currently enforce power gaming is if you have completely sidestepped the people who are meant to be doing it. If you've gone through the effort of, have I asked somebody, have I gone in person, have I tried to PDA the person who's supposed to be doing this, and you can't get someone to actually do it, then is it more acceptable for you now to step in?
This ties into the thing where, would you be allowed to do something outside of your job if everything is absolutely fucked? So the goal is not to also detract from year round either. Like for example, let's say something's really bad, like a Malphai flooding, right? And you're hurt and you need to get healed. We're not going to be telling you have to die because you're an engineer and you don't know medicine. That would be stupid. That's too far. You're at no point will your character have to die because of a knowledge thing. With that being said, like let's say you get a boo-boo, you should not go into chemistry and make the most absolutely optimal heal pill, print it out 50 times, and then have them in your bag for the rest of the round. No, that's too far too, right? But if there's a flood and you need to heal yourself of the burns, you can do so. If that puts you outside of your department, it's on a case by case basis. But if things are fucked, you can do so. If your character has a backstory explaining it, no, you can't say I'm an engineer, but I also have a PhD in medicine, therefore I can do CMO things. No, you can't do that. You would never be able to do that on any server with roleplay. You cannot backstory away things like that. You can have a backstory that's like interesting, but it shouldn't just be an excuse to game the system in some way.
So my original question, it got cut out of this for sake of the post not being like 3 paragraphs. The original post had something along the lines of, oh, the mime's doing his funny little surgery gimmick, but he took the Surgery for Dummies book from the surgery room with him. Does that make it better and more allowable that he's kind of icily gone through I have the book, I'm just following the steps here, I'm not doing a complicated, eye replacement surgery. I'm just like, I'm pulling a guy's appendix out. You know what I mean? Is that better and more allowable if they've kind of gone through an effort to icily show that they should be allowed to do this?
I think the point is, in real life, you wouldn't trust someone who's just read a book over 5 minutes to take your appendix out, would you? Not really. You wouldn't trust them. So I think it makes it better, but it probably shouldn't be like, oh, I've got the book here, that means I can do it. You know what I mean?
I would
that shouldn't be a
say
thing.
I would say that too. Like if you could technically have the book and then wish away everything, you could technically do whatever you want because there's almost a book about everything. There's a book on how to be security. There's a book on space law. There's a book on the SM. There's a book on I think there's a book on the turbine. So just because you have the presence of a book, that doesn't by default will away the rule, right? But it can tie into a gimmick with a mime. His intention is clearly not to supersede Medbay and just make Medbay irrelevant. He's trying to do a fun gimmick, especially since it's just in the hallway. So, but like the book should not just will away the rule. You see what I'm saying? It would apply to really any role that you can't just have the presence of an icy book and that lets you do everything in that department. Like a chemistry book means you can do everything chemistry related. That would tie into just like nullifying somebody's job for any reason, really. There was one last scenario in the question. Let me look.
So the last scenario was cargo building Tesla for a bounty because engineering doesn't want to help them, doesn't want to take part. So in the original question, the scenario was, the cargo techs have asked, they've asked people, hey, we need the Tesla for this, can you help us? And engineering just says, nah, dude, we're busy. You have our blanket permission to do what you need to do. Is that still power gaming for them to now, on their own, do it without engineers involved?
Building a Tesla? Yeah, probably.
So this is a controversial one that gets asked a lot, and I would actually say council doesn't have a consensus on it because I have an opinion, and Lilas has the opposite opinion.
This is different. This is different than just building a Tesla that's going to stay in cargo.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one where you build a Tesla on the shuttle and ship it away, and it gets deleted.
Yeah. So my personal opinion is that filling out bounties is part of cargo's job. That what they need to do is they need bounties and they need to ship them back in order to get the money for completing that bounty. That being said, building a Tesla is a bounty, and I personally think cargo is engineering adjacent enough that they could. But Going forward,
Ah.
that's iffy. See,
You are
going
the
forward,
only
that's
council
iffy.
member with that opinion.
Hold on,
Yeah.
Shrimp. I think the main issue is that Cargo have recently got a station goal to create a Tesla every round.
Yeah. Like I said, this
So-
is a controversial one.
I think maybe we should take that out and give them a different one instead.
Yeah.
That's a code solution.
Yeah.
Well, it's a code problem, isn't it? So
On the other hand, just because something is a bounty, like that doesn't mean Cargo can necessarily do it. For example, there'll be a bounty for some really complicated chem. That doesn't mean Cargo can make a chem lab in Cargo and then make all the complicated chems for the complicated bounties. That would be absurd too.
Well, it's already kind of been considered like Cargo is engineering adjacent. They can kind of do some engineering. Science is kind of medical adjacent. They can kind of know some medical stuff. So that's why I think it's kind of okay if Cargo asks engineering and they're like, "We're busy, dude. Do your own project."
Tesla's a little far.
Tesla is a round-ending threat, and that needs way more permission than just a single engineer.
Yeah.
I'd say for now we'll stick to no. They shouldn't be making Teslas even for the bounty. But we can look into this topic more further. Maybe it can be adjusted code-wise, because right now, as it stands code-wise, they have a very good reason to. RP-wise, it's iffy. Let's move on to the next question, because that was a big doozy. Who's allowed to hunt antags now? Set command Borg's AI. Asked by Oliver. Oliver, would you like to speak or anything before we answer this? Is he in here? Yes, he is. Can't at the moment? Okay. Is there anything would you like to add before we answer? Okay. So we kind of touched on this briefly with Sec and Borgs. I just want to reiterate, because we are kind of already answered this. With security, they're still going to be the ones who are primarily the ones who are going to stop antags as needed. There's going to be some caveats with RP related specifically to certain situations. But if there is an antagonistic threat that legitimately threatens a station or like crew or anything like that, then they would still be allowed to do their jobs. Command, obviously, command like CMO, CRD, they are not Dantag hunters. They should not, barring extreme circumstances. We talked about going forward with Blue Space Officer. That would
Blue
definitely
Shield.
nullify things like Captain's ability to valid hunt. But as it stands, Blue Space Officer is not that. So he's not in the There's no Blue Shield Officer. So I would
Space
say,
officer.
as it stands, security should be the ones defaulted 100% of the time to dealing with antags, depending on the situation. With Borgs, they should not try to loophole their laws into justifying it how they can valid hunt all they want. But that being said, they're still allowed to follow their laws. And there's not going to be anything like where the rules take precedent over their laws in regards to that. If their laws specifically outline it, they can do it. So that applies to Borgs and AI. Does anybody have anything else to
AI
add?
and Borg should be following their laws without consideration for who is antag, what is best for the situation. You should literally just be following your laws.
However,
So if you have a random person who's gone up to you and said, "Hey, can I have some money?" and you are forced to obey them, you obey them. That if they say, "I need some money," you just go, "Okay, I think the closest place is probably the vault. Let them in. There's your money."
However, there is obviously certain situations where you should help first, as in if a clown somehow gets access to an upload board and uploads a law that says kill everybody. That's probably best to check with admins before you just start plasma flooding.
Well, I do want to specifically edit that because that's not going to change. If you receive a law and you obey that law, you're not the one who gets in trouble for that
No.
law. So if there's a
Mhm.
non-anti clown that for some reason uploaded plasma flood as a law, you as an AI should follow your laws and plasma flood. But you're not going to be the one responsible for the invalid murders of everybody who died. That would be the clown, and he would get a hefty ban.
But I still think it's good to avoid the whole situation at all, just to say, hey, am I
Yeah.
okay to plasma
I
flood?
mean, obviously,
Got
if it's
this
going to be
law.
as fuck it, it helps us if you ask. But if you don't, then you're not responsible.
No, exactly.
If a Borg has noticed that you have ordered it to do something and you have done something which is then against the law or some other, they can note it and remember it, but that doesn't mean that they have to immediately go and report it.
Missa asks, if I ask a board to let me into the RD office and they let me take the holo tool, is it okay for them to immediately run to security screaming? I would say no. We're not here to gamify and tag objectives, especially trader objectives, unless they're very extreme. For example, something like stealing the nuke core could be pretty bad, or stealing components of the armory, like guns in the armory. That's a lot different, but just a tool is a tool. We're not gonna metagame it as like antag goals going
I
forward.
think the general rule is you shouldn't really care. Like, for example,
Yeah.
if someone asks you to go into the teleporter and then they steal the hand teleporter, they walk away and say thank you very much. Like you just like whatever. But if, for example, it comes up later saying, "Oh, who's the hand teleporter? Now, what's going on?" And then it said, "AI, did anyone let them in?" And then you say, "Yeah, I let them in earlier, and they stole the hand teleporter." You know what I mean? You can say stuff like that, but you're not supposed to be the ones that's supposed to say. You're not supposed to be snitches. You're not supposed to instantly run and say, "Oh my god, this person! I just let this person in. And they stole the hand teleport." You just like you remember the situation and bring it up if it becomes relevant. Like, yeah, you can say, "Oh yeah, I let them in, and I let them in earlier." And you say, "Oh, did they steal anything?" "Oh yeah, they took the hand teleporter." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Didn't ask." You know what I mean? You shouldn't really care unless you have a law which obviously makes you have to care.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. For example, if let's say you're an Asimov Borg, and you saw somebody steal the hand teleporter, that literally has nothing to do with human harm, like at all. Like you even reporting it is not you caring about your laws at all. That's you caring about like fucking with antags and just like trying to like gamify the round in a way that makes it so you're just trying to stop antags, despite it not being in your laws and despite you not being like an officer or anything of the case. This would even apply to security Borgs. We're not going, in my opinion, we're not going to go forward and be like, oh, security Borg is more allowed to valid hunt over an engineering Borg. Borg are Borg. Borgs are Borg. You follow your laws, even if you have a disabler built into your Borg module.
If a prisoner demands you let him go and you have a law too, you have to do it.
Yes, Sekborgs do not follow space law. Just because you are a Sekborg does not mean you're Cop Borg. You follow your laws.
But if a HOS tells you to arrest someone, then you do it.
Yeah. Theft is a form of harm. Shrugs. No, it's not. It depends on the subject. Like, of course, like if we're talking about guns, if we're talking about something, it could even be a big thing like all access, right? All access can turn into a lot of crazy shenanigans. But if it's literally like they stole the holo tool, you don't give a fuck with Asimov Borgs. It's not harm.
I don't think potential should be put into laws because it's assumption. An assumption of potential is a stupid way of thinking about laws. Like, for example, I played a while ago where an AI literally locks down mining at round start because there was a potential of people getting hurt, which is absolutely stupid.
That would not be allowed.
Yeah, well, a certain admin allowed it 2 rounds in a row, which I
Well,
won't
break
name.
his fucking legs.
But like I said, I don't think people should be like, "Oh, that's a knife. That could cause harm." That I don't like the whole assumption, the whole guessing that this could happen, or this might happen. It's
Jamie,
a bit,
please
it's a
please
bit
PM
iffy.
me that name of that admin because I'm going to look into that if that actually happened.
It
I
was
actually
like
put it in council.
it was like
Okay.
7 months ago. But if you really want me to dig it up, I can.
Oh well, no. It
It
must be
wasn't
it's
recently.
actually
It was before I was admin,
okay.
and it pissed the fuck out of me. But whatever.
I think we've answered this question. We can move forward.
Yep.
Will backstories for your characters be an? Oh, sorry.
Carry on.
Shit. There was something that I had about
Go on.
Boris. I lost it though. Okay, sorry.
So you have something,
If-
or you don't?
I
He
don't
doesn't.
know.
Okay.
If you recollect it, we can come back.
Yeah.
Next question is: will backstories for your characters be an option, and would they have an impact on what you're able to get away with? Backstories as a code feature, they are currently not in the game, but we definitely want them to be added in the game. Jamie can talk more of that as a code feature
Yeah,
in
not
terms
hard.
of. Go on.
So it's not hard to do. That's easy. We can just do that.
Yeah. In terms of an RP feature, we want to add that. We want people to have backstories as part of their character. They would be like in the examine, like they are on most servers. Will they allow you to change up how you play the game? No. The goal is not, I repeat this, the goal is not to play engineer, but then you have a PhD in medicine and then also act as a CMO. That's not the goal. You can write an interesting backstory. You could write a backstory about how you're a one job, but you're now another job. But the goal of backstories and examine text is not to change up the game and how you play the game. That is what you queue. That's what you pick a job for. Somebody.
Bad kleptomaniac's already a thing. It's already in the game. Todd coded it.
Oliver asks, if you get your job changed, what jobs do you now know how to do? If you get your job changed through HOP, you should do that job. Like, for example, you will still be, let's say you queue up, and for some reason the game you botany, and you really don't want to be a botanist. You can go to the HOP and be like, make me engineer. And then you can act as an engineer for the rest of the round. That's fine. What you shouldn't do is like, just treat access as knowledge. So if, for example, if an HOP gave you botany, engineering, and science, you should not do a combination of all three. That's not your job. So HOPs going forward should be looking to assign people a job, and people should be working that job that they get assigned to, whether it's changed, whether it's what they roll or what they get changed to. Would you lose if you went from engineer to doctor? Would you lose the knowledge of engineering and gain medical knowledge? Yes. On a normal round, barring extreme circumstances, you would lose the previous job's knowledge and gain new knowledge in the new one. You can just treat it as like you would treat it as if you rolled doctor to begin with, rather than engineering.
Okay, should we move on to another question?
Yes. The next question is exactly what knowledge does each role have? How does knowledge in one department and extend to other departments? Asked by Oliver. So this is a complicated one, right? There are some jobs that are adjacent to each other. There are some jobs that are very not adjacent to each other. And at one point, council had a real long document about this that had very specific things. We're not going with that as it stands, but what we're going to is with this experiment, it's kind of going to be an experiment in regards to this. It's very clear that certain jobs aren't other jobs. For example, no job is security besides security. Engineering is not security. Science is no closer to security than engineering, etc. But there are jobs that are adjacent. In the rules document, we described some examples of this. For example, let me see.
think your example is security assigned to engineering. It does not know engineering or something similar to that.
Yeah. There's also certain very adjacent jobs. It would not be a problem if, for example, you are a chef and there are no botanists. You ask the HOP for botany access, and then you grow some food and then cook it. That would be fine. If, for example, there are Oliver asks, will leeway be given to clowns and mimes in terms of knowledge, given that them doing wacky gimmicks is their shtick? Yes, you will still be able to do gimmicks as long as the goal is to add to the round, not subtract or be selfish. So that's going to be also with like a lot of jobs. If you're adding to the round in some facility, then it could be extended for something that's not your job. So I think one particular example would scientists be allowed to build certain machines that they have from the proto-lathe? Like, yes, they would. It's technically an engineering job to build machines and things like that. It's all obviously on a case-by-case basis, but it's not going to be something scientists are blanket not allowed to build any machines of any kind unless an engineer does it for them. That would be a bit absurd. You can build certain machines, right? The goal is obviously not to just build your own chem lab as a scientist to ignore the chemists, right? But you still be allowed to build machines. Does anybody have anything else they want to add to this? There's not going to be a hard document about like this job is allowed to do XYZ adjacent jobs. There's not going to be anything like that. You just have to really use your head, and it's still going to tie into like how the round is progressing as a whole. And you should still not be trying to invalidate any other job by doing something and calling it adjacent. Oliver asks, is the AI Borgs assumed to have knowledge of all jobs? That is a tough one. We have not talked about anything like Ingeborg is limited to Ingeborg only things. Technically, if a Borg has the ability to do it, technically as it stands, they are allowed to do it, ignoring things like valid hunting, et cetera, et cetera. But that is something we can do going forward, but no hard ruling has been made on that. I would say that if you're going to pick a Borg, you should still try to stick in your lane and not invalidate other jobs. So, for example, if you're an Ingeborg, you shouldn't be doing everything so entire departments are invalid. You would be able to do things like set up turbine as AI if there's no Atmos text. That would be fine.
So, like, if you're an Ingeborg, you find a pile of dead bodies. Can you clone them? Like, things like that. Yeah, that's part of it.
That sounds fine to me.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, like, I think that as long as the Borg has the capability to do so, they can do so. That makes sense. Especially because Borgs just can't pick up fucking anything and, like, do anything. They're actually already limited by the tools they have.
Yeah. Fake Mort asks, Warden and HOS are assumed to have knowledge of basic surgery for implant removal and stuff, correct? I haven't really made up my mind on.
Wait, the bot disconnected.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna be one shitty recording.
Yeah.
I hate your avatar, Fake Mord. I just want to point that out.
Bot spec.
So, knowledge of basic surgery for implant removal and stuff, right? So, this is a little iffy. I would say for gameplay purposes, if it's necessary for the round to continue as a whole, then I could say it could be fine. But what they shouldn't be doing is they arrest a traitor, so they start opening every organ of his, looking for things like storage implants, implanted anything like adrenals, implants, etc., etc. Is Return to Rome asks, so my gimmick of the Mechanicus chap that builds an exofab and makes a ton of cells for the gods is against the rules. So this is not necessarily true. Like if a gimmick, if it adds to the round in a certain capacity, which I would say this one does, I would say it would be fine. The goal is not, for example, you're a chaplain, your god is your follow the Mechanicus. You should not be like, oh, since I follow the Mechanicus, I'm just gonna print out a mech and go around the station with it. That would be too far. That would be not okay. The roles of clown, mime, and chaplain are generally gimmick oriented. So again, we've talked about how they can do gimmicks as long as it's like adds to the round. Is it okay for a scientist to build a cell charger engine because the power is gone? I would say that is fine because that is literally for the progression of the round. Here's a very important question that we haven't talked about. What do assistants know? Does anybody have anything they would like to talk about that? So one solution I propose to this, because we do want people to stick within their lanes, is if jobs are sticking within their people playing these jobs are sticking with their lanes, what do you do with assistants who literally don't have a lane? My proposition, it's a bit a controversial one, is make assistants assigned to departments. Like they would be assigned to departments and they're still an assistant, but they're assigned to a department. And then they would be allowed to do very, very basic things of that department's nature. You could be a medical assistant, for example. And of course, there are jobs that are already like this. Like, how could you even be lower than a cargo tech, for example? But or even yes, a psychologist or psychiatrist. But that's what I would do going forward, so they actually have a lane to stick within. As it stands, certain very power gaming people use the fact that assistant is kind of generic and not assigned to anything. They use that as an excuse to do everything, which is not going to be okay going forward. You should not be doing going assistant for the sake of just doing anything that you want. Um, I also wanted to touch on the subject. I know people love blue space locker gimmicks. I love locker gimmicks. You guys can hear me, right? Marmu says he can't hear me.
You're fine.
You're fine.
Yeah, so locker gimmicks are fun, but again, they should not be invalidating other departments and other people's jobs. Assistants, even if they had a lane, would not have any responsibilities still. You're not forced to do anything as assistant. And yeah, I just want to reiterate, you can still do silly things with blue space lockers, but they should not be invalidating other people's jobs. I'm going to move to the next question. Let's see. Okay, here's the next one. Will extended be added to the rotation? If so, how common would it be compared to other modes? This was asked by Propaganda Bot and XOX. Do any of you want to talk before we can talk about it? XOS, no. Okay, they don't have anything to add. Okay, does anybody want to talk about this subject?
Sorry, what was the subject?
I don't think we've got any huge plans for whether or not extended is going to be in the game. It will almost definitely depend on how people feel, how people want it to be in. If no one wants it, then we won't add it. If people do want it, then we will take a look and see how easy it will be to add. We're not just gonna lol extended can be a thing now, throw it in.
We
What's
could
it?
we could have community vote over it and see how people feel. Go from there. But
Well, we could do is another code solution. We could do a, let's say, I'm not going to say a full game mode vote, but at the end of the round, there could be a vote which triggers for the next round, which basically does. We could even do like extended dynamic or secret or something like that. You know what I mean? We could do some kind of cool game mode, like what do you want to play kind of thing on the previous round. We could do something like that. We could maybe think about it, or we'll I mean, obviously.
If you ask me, I think there's enough snooze trader rounds to like basically count as extended. I think like certain rounds, which is not a bad thing necessarily, but there are certain rounds where, like for example, if the traders were stopped and there's only 2 going about doing anything, and they're doing it absolutely stealthy as possible, the round type might as well be extended. And some people like that. They like that. Yeah, people talk about vampires basically being extended. That's not necessarily a bad thing because it's almost extended light in the game. I don't personally think we need a mode that forces it to be extended. Generally, if the antags are stopped or they are super duper calm, for majority of people in the round, it is extended. And
we could do maybe like a PvE game mode instead of extended, which makes like events more common or something, which makes it more of a station is trying to fight, whatever the RNG generator throws at them kind of thing. Maybe that might be a better thing to do. So it's not completely boring, but you don't have to worry about like someone coming and trying to kill you, so to speak. So it's like you're all working together kind of thing. I don't know. There's options, I guess. I guess we just need to all debate what we want to do.
Yeah. Good for the move on the next one.
will shift being over be moved to be later than 1 hour 30 minutes into the round to allow for longer rounds? The shuttle is essentially always called when that happens after all. I believe that only happens at 1 hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, 1:45.
It's 1:45.
I personally don't think that rounds really need to drag on after 2 hours. I think this is personal because some rounds can actually continue on. I think for the sake of people who have died in the round, and for the sake of people who are joining late or want to like do roll for antag or play a certain role like captain, but they can't because they joined late, I think for their sake that round should end after 2 hours. I think basically everything can be accomplished, whether it be some crazy build or some role play or some antag thing. It all can be accomplished in 2 hours.
At the end of the day, the crew call the shuttle. So if the crew have enough reason not to call the shuttle, then the round can stay for longer.
Yeah, I mean, if the crew doesn't want the shift to end, then all right. But normally people do at that point. It's 2 hours into a fucking round.
Yeah, because usually most things done by them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll move to the next question. Will calling the emergency shuttle to arrive at shift end be looked down upon, or is that going to be okay? That's still going to be fine because technically,
It's the end of the shift.
Yeah, it's the end of the shift. Your shift, ICLI, no matter what happens, is only 2 hours.
I've got an idea, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So back in my day, we used to have something called a crew transfer shuttle instead of an emergency shuttle. So you could call the crew transfer shuttle instead of the emergency shuttle after the shift has ended to make it more RPIC related. Like it's actually just like a crew transfer has been initiated kind of thing, and then it's literally a crew transfer shuttle. It's not an emergency shuttle. It just to make it more like more law wise and stuff like that. But yeah. Don't know what your thoughts about that, but that makes.
I mean,
if you want
to add that flavor, and yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a little tweak, but it kind of adds a bit more dynamic to the whole. Oh, this is an emergency shuttle. This is a crew transfer shuttle. This is just like a take your time. You don't have to run, but
Recorder bot died again.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake.
Very cool.
Alex Carr, I swear to Christ, you have one job.
Trying.
Just keep that bot alive, and you're not doing it.
I think Discord's having a real bad day.
It is.
Changeling Mord asks if heads non-antags are preventing the end of the round for no reason but shits or giggles. Can Sec take action and arrest for dereliction of duty or something?
Probably say a help. If
Yeah,
you,
that's
if you have
kind
a
of
genuine no reason to do it.
That's kind of an outer character issue because they shouldn't hold the next round from happening hostage just because they can. Ickley. Susmord.
Susmord.
I will wait for progression, or I mean for the for Mr. Bot to come back. He's having a real bad day.
Can you not just give it some more missions?
Well, Reed asks.
It's literally just dying.
I think it's like purely like a Discord is just eating shit right now as a whole, not just on Yogs, Xantam as a whole.
What?
Nothing.
What? I wasn't listening. I just said my name. What?
Don't worry about it. Reed asks.
I can slide at you.
Concerns me when he says my name.
I just like hearing your name spoken by me. Reed
Mod
asks.
2.0 still has other questions as well.
Oh, who has a question?
Mod 2.0.
Reed just asked a question. Don't fucking talk over because my fucking clone asked a question.
Reed asks, will all the heads ever be locked out of all round star antag types? So, this one, I would say, is largely a code issue because it all depends on the balance of a head and the game modes. Like, for example, as it stands, what can they not roll? Do you know?
Yeah, we made some changes recently to make heads not able to. Basically, any round start antags which are, say, with the crew or are not really allowed, like changeling, traitor, vampire. Ones that are not like round ending conversion ones or anything like that. Like, basically, most heads can't be most antag types these days. So yeah. We've just kind of taken the whole ambiguity of it out. So if you roll ahead, you're most likely not going to get antag.
Roleplay wise, that's not
OP.
gonna change.
Now recording.
There it is.
Now
Found it.
Yeah, roleplay wise, that's not really gonna change. That's gonna stick to being a coder thing where they talk about is it balanced for example, RD to be this antag round start, or is it unbalanced for him to be X? That's gonna, you know what I mean?
Code issue.
Yeah. What's it? Are SEC expected to take more action against botany making drugs under new medium RP rules? No. That's an IC issue if they don't really if there's more pressing concerns, then they can stick to pressing concerns. They're not gonna boink them because they're not getting botany in trouble for weed or anything like that. Specifically, I want to point out that I'm fairly sure how we always will enforce it is botany can make drugs all they want. It's just a problem if they slip out. And personally, I never cared about that as an officer.
I'll be recording from my computer. Hold on a second.
Sure thing.
I think it's mainly the distribution that they can get arrested for.
We can take a break for everybody to type Yoggers in chat. Can I get a Yoggers in chat?
Oh no!
Is anyone still here? Yep,
Apparently.
There we go. We're taking a nice Yoggers break. If you have Discord Nitro, can we get a wait, what's it?
The animated yoggers.
Yeah.
Yoggers dance.
Okay, I'm now recording from my computer.
I'm gonna need to head out. It's nice chat with you guys.
Let's sleep.
Thank you for being here, Mord. We're all glad we're all participate.
Right. Thank you for actually making time available for me. Right.
Cheers, big ears. Hold on, my cat's going psycho.
Now there's only one more. It'll get a lot less confusing.
I also need to head out because I have work tomorrow. So it's been a pleasure.
Best of luck, Xantam. Really
Don't
harm
spoil it,
baton
please.
those prisoners.
Oh, I can't say too much, but yeah. Good night.
Good night.
Wow.
Okay, now that the recording bot or Alex Carr's recording again, let's get back on the questions. Let's see. Okay, with the new roleplay standards, will devils be added to rotation? If so, how common will they be compared to other modes? Here's my biased opinion. I hate devils. I think they're stupid, and I would never force them ever. But other people disagree with me. I'll let them talk.
It'll be part of the game mode review that's going on soon to basically figure out which game modes we want to support, which game modes we want to cull. There's gonna be a project soon where I'm gonna basically review all of the game modes and see which ones we can get rid of if we don't want to keep them, so we can unmaintain some and put some in rotation, and this will all go past council, and there'll be a council vote to enact it. So
Tog wants the mic. We can give him the mic. You have the mic. You can...
So I've already done some work on Devils. The problem is the normal Devil game mode is a pseudo conversion near the end. Not to mention the pure amount of spells and all access that Devil can give out. The changes that I made it a little bit slower. It's no longer a conversion at the end of the near the late game of the round. And it just needs to be updated. It went stale because it was only test merged. It just needs to be updated, and it could be somewhat tried again.
I'm definitely willing to experiment with new modes and things like that. But you won't get it from me because I hate Devil. I hate Devil. I hate it. I hate him almost as much as vampires.
Yeah, in its current form, the entire game mode is just a conversion and tag.
So, a Devil can be looked into, but there's currently no plans in regards to that. That would definitely rely on some code changes, etc., etc. Let's see. We can move on to the next one because that was easy peasy. What kind of code changes will be rolled out to improve on RP? So this is a doozy question. Obviously, there's a lot that can be done, so we're not going to just sit here rambling. But Jamie, if you would like to speak on anything particular you really want to see or are working on, you can go say so.
Like I there can be a code solution for any issue you have in the game. There's a rule solution for most things as well. Basically, we will just do it and play it by ear. So if anyone has any suggestions for ways to improve role play, for example, like my suggestion about the crew transfer shuttle is a nice way to increase role play, and it doesn't take that much effort. It's just a little thing. If you've got little suggestions like that, feel free to put them in suggestions. Well, we haven't really got suggestions, have we? Just, I don't know, do something, put it somewhere, bug reports maybe, but that's gonna get spammed otherwise now because I regret saying that. But just like we do have a suggestions placed on the forums, which isn't really used that much, but Darkspawn is being worked on. I'm gonna fix that tomorrow. There's currently a bug with verbs and stuff on that. But basically, yeah, we're always open to increasing RP with code changes, but coders basically, I don't want to say that coders are not always going to be the idea people. They're the ones that make stuff work. If you give them an idea, they will go and find a solution to it, but they can't be expected to take the weight of the server and do everything. So you can't just say, I want this happening or do this, and they're just like, yeah, okay, I'll just come up with a whole system and solution. Like, you need to, if you want something implemented, you need to have a good plan and a good way of implementing it, and then most likely have a good solution for it.
It also can't be something like, hey, coders, can you fix this problem without even remotely having any idea of what the problem is or what specific thing is the problem or even an idea of how to fix it. At the same time, you shouldn't just ideas guy at the coders. Like, you shouldn't just type up a 5-page document on, for example, a new game mode and just be like, can you code this pretty please? Thanks. Because that's not going to be realistic either. But there are code solutions that can be done, and there will be code solutions coming in regards to improving RP. Does anybody have anything else they want to add before we move on? Also, stop asking for boars. I will literally make sure boars never enter this game again.
Oof.
Boars were absolutely dog shit when they existed, and they will never come back.
Not that bad.
I miss the guy named Cortical Boar. He was an old friend. So I'm going to move on to the next one. Will more gimmicky suicides like the oxygen tank giving suicide be removed from the code, discouraged from rules, or will they just stay here? Asked by Ronan. Was Ronan here? Would he like to speak? No, he's not here. Or is he?
I think.
Mine eyes don't see. Yeah, he's not here. So in the current document, there is a rule 1, play a realistic character, and rule 1.1 is be believable. Your character wants to keep living, is reasonably sane, and would not do unrealistic things to jeopardize his employment. If you do not wish to keep playing the game, go to cryo in dorms rather than going brain dead in the hallways or committing suicide. So, yeah, you should not be popping yourself with an oxygen tank round start because you don't like your role or you're not antag or anything of the sort.
What about assistance?
Huh?
What about assistance?
Yeah, so that's a specific thing as it stands. Our rules are don't commit suicide unless you're assistant or tourist. That was purely for gameplay because you shouldn't suicide as a limited job like any head, any like 3-man scientists, etc., etc. Going forward, you should not be suiciding just for no reason at all. You should just you should cryo. Bomb asks why have suicide as a function if it's unencouraged or against the rules. There are still gameplay functions that exist with suicide. If you were, for example, captured by Xenos and you don't want to, suffer the experience of having your chest burst, you could commit suicide. You could walk out an airlock to make sure the alien inside of you doesn't get burst and kills people further. There are actual reasons for the in-game function of suicide to exist. That function is not suiciding in HOP line anymore. That's something that's going to go.
Why not has a point?
Let's see. Where?
He says that isn't suiciding to prevent conversion against the rules.
Yeah, that's still going to be against the rules. I'm not talking about things like that. Having a Xeno inside of you is not conversion. You still not be able to ghost. Like if you're being converted to blood cult, you should still not ghost or suicide in the process of doing so. You cannot use a suicide verb if you're cuffed. I'm talking. I'm just saying that there's going to be situations that you will be allowed to suicide. The majority of them, a majority of people use suicide verb to like kill themselves in HOP line. That's not going to be kosher going forward, if that makes sense. Anybody have anything else to add, or we're going to move to the next question?
Next.
Okay. Will Captain be distanced from security work, valid hunting? If so, how will the role played in the future? I've already talked about this subject in regards to how we could possibly change this up with the Blue Shield officer. Just quickly repeat myself. The captain can be distanced from doing security work if we add the Blue Shield officer role, in which case his protection will be done by the Blue Shield officer as with other heads. We want in the future the captain not to be HOS 2.0, and we're going to be looking at some changes with code to do that. As it stands, the captain will be able to still function the same as he currently is, but we are going to ask the players to play captain less like HOS 2.0 and more of like an actual leader. So I don't think we have anything else to add on that. Has any thought been put into the fact that some admins are against the transition to higher RP standard? And how will that interact with the fact that staff discretion is heavily valued over rule lawyering? AK, will staff discretion in regards to role play rules and how they are enforced become an issue? I want to say, when I was designing these rules, I worked with as much staff as I could. We basically had a mini town hall, literally with just staff on this subject, and it was about getting consensus on what we want in the rules, what we want in RP rules, etc., etc. So these rules are as much consensus I could get with the staff as humanly possible, and after that, nice. The bot has error cannot send in whatever. This is as much consistency as we can get with the staff. There are some staff who still disagree on certain things. We are working on generating more consensus, and on top of that, getting player-based consensus on it as well. As for like unequal staff enforcement, we're not trying to go about that, but there will be things that are very context dependent. But the point of the outlines or the examples and the thing, if you notice, there are a lot of examples. That's like coming up with examples of things in order to make sure everybody's on as best same page as possible, whether it be staff, council, or players. More examples can be made. Some examples can be tweaked. We already tweaked some examples, and some people have already pointed out specific things. We're not trying to make this a shithole of you don't even know what to do, because some staff are so strict and uptight, and some staff literally don't even care. These RP rules are going to be enforced by all staff, regardless of their opinion, but this is still created in mind with trying to please as many people as possible. Does anybody have anything else to add? Okay, I will move. Let me see, actually. Okay, I will move to the next question. Will the enemy of the corp capital crime be removed from space law? This wasn't really talked about, and I would say, as it stands, there's no plans to remove that from space law because that has an important function in certain regard. Go on.
I thought we did talk about this in the meeting, and I thought we were going to get rid of it.
I don't remember. Did I say that?
Yeah, I think you did. I thought the whole point is we were going to get rid of the EOTC law so that certain antags couldn't be validated around start.
So, as it stands, we've already made a change in regards to space law. In regards to, let's say you find somebody and he has a trader gear, that does not immediately implicate him with our current space law. That does not immediately implicate him as a traitor and conscript him to death if the captain wills it. There is a specific crime. I can't remember its exact name. Was it like syndicate contraband? That can apply instead of permaring or things like that. We're going to want that to be more of the norm going forward. That's going to be the norm going forward. The enemy of the corp will exist as it stands in certain regards to certain things that are immediate threats, right? You shouldn't have to, for example, if there's a nuke op and he's shooting, you shouldn't have to be, oh, I have to do the proper arrest procedure. I have to do this. I have to treat him like he's a regular trader, because he's not. He's a nuke op. He's trying to kill you, right? And especially if he's actively shooting at you, right? So EOTC is going to exist in that faculty, right? There's still going to be certain antags that their mere existence is such a threat that they just have to be dealt with immediately. That's going to still exist, right? What's not going to happen going forward is that EOTC might be changed. This might happen going forward. EOTC might be changed so that you cannot just simply look at somebody for existing and immediately consign them to death. Like, for example, with the RP document, we already have that in place where you shouldn't literally assassinate a wizard simply for existing, even if you're an officer. As soon as he does any funny business, like, fireballing the captain, that's completely off the table, right? So this does not have an exact plan going forward, but I'm telling you, generally, I remember now, Jamie, what we're going to do going forward in regards to this. The goal is to not have certain antags who shouldn't be consigned to death immediately be consigned to death immediately because they are technically an EOTC. Does anybody have anything else to add on this? Festive Mord asks, does the section about executions within space law, does that section not address the issues of antags being murdered around start, meaning you don't need to remove it? Yes, so that's still applying. That's one of the things I was talking about with, like, there are things in place currently within space law that we've added in order to not have people just like instantly killed because technically they're valid within space law. That is more about things, let's say, for example, there is a traitor. His crime was he murdered 2 people with an e-sword and got captured for it, right? So he's captured, he's in cuffs, and you have no reason to believe he's going to get out. He's in cuffs, he has no traitor gear, right? That section you posted about executions within space law, that is about what security and captain do after he's captured. That will still apply. That is something we already have in regards to, like, just executing them simply because of the nature of who they are. The EOTC crime is more about, you see them, they're not cuffed, they have their gear. How do you go about them as an officer, following space law, etc.? So if they're obviously something like a threat, like a nuke op shooting at you, that will still be going forward. You can immediately deal with them. You can run, you can shoot them, you can kill them, etc., because they are an immediate threat and things like that. Things like active changelings, like actively trying to kill people, that should still be the case for them too.
Depends on the situation, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. What's it? What if security are you proposing a new law such as enemy action against the corporation that does not include holding contraband or being a wizard, but using contraband or being aggressive against the station? So as it stands, there is the law.
There are already laws for that.
Yeah. There's possession of syndicate contraband.
And then there's like ground sabotage, which is quite clearly.
Yeah, there are still plenty of laws that you can apply to, for example, a wizard, even if he is not an enemy of the corporation. We don't need to create a new law about that. For example, if a wizard fireballed the captain, you could easily get him for, murder. You could get him for, all sorts of things. Like, as it stands, you still have plenty of tools now and going forward to deal with antags as a security officer. EOTC is pretty much only going to remain as a faculty of something like you immediately see a threat, you know he's a threat, and there's no time for RP or anything like that. It's mainly for nuke ops, really. Does anybody have anything else to add? This is something we're going to talk about going forward. We're going to have a concrete plan in regards to this, and I'll post something about this once we have a concrete plan about EOTC, crimes of EOTCs, etc., etc. And yes, according to Jamie, we're going to make traders start with 100 TC. That'll fix things.
Well, yeah, and we're going to increase the prices by 5, so we've got more granularity to put more
I would
items
love
in different
that.
places. So like we can have more options to put items in certain places instead of like everything there's 20-point value grade. We're going to have 100-point value grade instead. So it will give us more options to put certain items in certain places to make it more balanced.
Like we can have 1 TC mini bombs.
Yeah, we could do something like that. We could do we can do. So like anything that's
Can't
10
believe you
TC
agreed with
right
me.
now would be 50 TC. But no, I don't mean like 1 TC mini bombs. That's stupid. But
I
I
would
mean,
do
you know what I
that.
mean?
No.
Some
Yeah.
of the weaker options will be cheaper. Some of the more expensive items will be more expensive. We can adjust it as balance needs. But obviously, this is going to be a thorough chat with several game hour nerds like Why Not and Theos and all the people that power game the crap out of the game. So we'll have to go through and make sure it seems balanced for everyone, and then we'll test them all.
So I'm going to move to the next question. This is asked by Xantam. Can we explore the possibility of opening a second server as a low RP server for those who do not want to transition to medium RP to avoid losing players? So my opinion is that I tried my absolute damnedest that these RP rules, will still be compatible for people who really don't care about RP. What I mean by that is some people love the character they made. They love interacting with other people's important characters. They love playing a character. But there's also some people who just want to come to Yogs and play a job. They just want to play a job. They want to go to engineering, make some crazy engineering setup, and like at best they want to talk about their engineering setup. They don't care about talking about backgrounds, etc., etc. They basically don't even have a character, right? They will still be a place for them on Yogs as long as it's not detracting from the round and it doesn't break any of these rules. These rules were created so that they would still be able to exist. So going forward, these people who just want to like play the game, they don't really care about RP, they just want to play the game, they will still be able to do so. We don't need, in my opinion, we don't need to create a second server because I believe these rules are compatible with people you would call LRP players. And also on the topic, a second server is iffy. It can be talked about, in my opinion, when there's even more pop, maybe after a tide. But as it stands, I really do feel like these rules are compatible with all players. Does anybody have anything else to add in regards to a second LRP server? Why not? Would you like the mic or? Or are you just talking about something unrelated? Sure thing. I'll give Why Not a second. In the meantime, Jamie, would you like to add anything about like any sort of code shit regarding a second server?
There are solutions in place for a second server to work cooperatively with the main server. We have enough resource to run a second server. Maybe not more than that, but at the same time, there needs to be enough population to make it diverse enough that every game mode isn't just Traitor Brothers on both servers. So we need to make sure that we have enough pop for a suitable community and a suitable rounds before we even think about opening another server to have basically the same issue just twice, which will just pee everyone off. We could repurpose the second server as doing special events, special rounds, and like weekend things. We can do stuff like that, but at the moment there is no plan to open the second server up unless there is demand for it. I can't justify using server resources for basically no gain. So, yeah.
Why not? I've given you the mic roll. I wasn't asking you that. Oh, I thought you wanted to talk. If you have anything you want me to read aloud, I can also do that. I just wanted to make sure you were heard. Okay, you're good? Okay, then I'll remove your mic roll. Okay. Yeah, so I'm not in short, I'm not so sure about a second server as it stands. it can be talked about maybe way later in the future. I think right now people will be fine going forward, but we will see how people adjust when these rules are starting to get enforced. Let's see. Where were we? Will heretics and some of their abilities be meta shielded? So I want to point out a specific thing about the new RP rules. Before, the way our meta shield worked is it was inclusive. It would specifically outline what is meta shielded and like how you go about it. And in regards to things like that. So basically, with the current rules, nothing is meta shielded unless we specifically say this is meta shielded. Like for example, the stealthy category and the trader uplink. Going forward, that's not going to be the case. This is going to be a big change. It's going to be an exclusive meta shield where we don't want people just gamifying all antag abilities however they like. If you notice, there's an entire rule called avoid meta knowledge with specific things, such as 2.2. You do not know the nature and abilities of all antagonists. Security knows enough to do their job, and you know enough to protect your life from immediate danger, but you should not be reciting entire wiki articles on the nature of antagonists. So, the question of will heretics and their stuff be meta shielded? Antag stuff of all nature will have a meta shield to it, essentially. If you write those wiki articles, that still doesn't count. Mesa. Question about heretics. Can heretics murder bone when ascended, and will anything be done to prevent heretics from disregarding objectives completely to gun for murder bone status? In regards to them, that seems like a code issue in regards of why would they care about doing objectives in order to pursue the ascended status so they can turn into like those awful monsters that can just murder bone and do whatever the fuck they want. That in regards to like rules wise, they should not just be trying to get to a state to murder bone at all costs, or just in that just being the goal. I'm getting question marked. What am I missing about heretics? I don't know if Swiss is being serious, but it is a game mode. No, see, my point was not that they can't do things related to ascension. They are allowed to ascend, and that involves the kills that they need to do in order to ascend, right? But I'm talking specifically, the goal should not be just to get there at all costs in order to murder bone as much as they like. Does that make sense? There's specifically even a rule about this, and of course, heretics are new relatively, and they've not quite established their footing in the same way that we've established things like changelings, traders, etc., right? I'm still pretty flexible with heretics in regards to that. Does anybody have anything else they would like to add on the subject? To answer the original question, so we can move on. Again, the meta shield is not inclusive anymore. It's not going to specifically outline X, Y, and Z is meta shielded, and everything else goes. The meta shield specifically is going to be evolving around not reciting the entire wiki article in regards to like antags, their nature, their goals, etc., etc. My classic example is if you see somebody emagging into the room or into teleporter room and he steals a hand teleporter, you could say, for example, so and so broke the airlocks, right? That would be fine because he did. He broke the airlocks. What you shouldn't be doing is going, so and so emagged into the teleporter room in order to complete his trader objective of stealing the hand teleporter in order to green text. That's not what we want anymore. That's going away. I would like to point out that one of my least favorite things that people do is when they get the nature of the game type, the round type, they will immediately say it's revs, it's cult, it's traders. You shouldn't be doing that either. That's kind of gamifying the system. And of course, you can still talk about the threat to the station in some faculty, but it should not be as simple as it's revs. That's not something we're looking forward to going forward. I will move on to the next question unless anybody has anything to add. Yeah, there's a lot better ways to explain the threats to the station besides reciting its game mode. It's this trader or it's this antag. So I would say yes. Going forward, it's saying it's game mode. You will get boinked over. That's going to be a controversial one to some people, but it's true. I'm going to move to the next question. Will game mode weights be changed? This is RP wise, like in terms of RP changes. There's no plans to change game mode weights to, like, for example, promote a game mode that allows for RP or shove down a game mode that doesn't allow for RP. That's going to be a coder thing, and based on what people want to see more of or less of.
So there is a PR out now, which hasn't been actioned in a while, but it's just because I've been extremely busy with other things. But what the problem is, Swiss, that traitorlings and traitor weights are the most common because they're based on player count, and at the moment our player counts have been a bit crap. So there's
I
not
wouldn't say
many.
it's been crap. It's a pop, or it's like depends on the time of day.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying is you're going to get majority of traitor rounds because there's not enough population to do the funny rounds. That's the issue. There's no other real way around it. We either need some more game modes which focus on lower population, or we need to do something like dynamic, which we're trying to get working. I'm trying to get dynamic in a state where it can be merged, so that dynamic can I'm hoping that dynamic will be mainly taking over low pop hours, so that there's always going to be a bit of variety, and dynamic can handle the algorithms of what is good for being put in low pop and stuff like that, so it's not a snooze fest. But we'll see. It's all in the works. It's on the endless board of Jamie needs to do things, so it will get done. There's a PR up, so I don't forget. So it's on the
What's it? We with the recent survey, the Yogs general survey, that had a lot of feedback on antags or like game mode types.
Extremely helpful.
Yeah, that things will be adjusted according to that. Like, because we did that last time we did a general survey, we adjusted round types up and down.
It's quite interesting, actually, depending on what we got. There was a few game modes which I didn't think were very popular, but apparently are very popular, and I thought that were popular aren't very popular.
Like
which
what?
I thought was, like, for example, Changelings is actually very unpopular with a lot of people. Which I didn't think was the case. I thought people liked Changeling, but it's actually quite down the list. But Traitor Changeling is quite up there still. It's just so what I mean. It's kind of like there's a few things which are all over the place. So yeah, I'll wait for the results to come in and then add them into my adjustments. So yeah, we'll see.
I think we're good on this topic. Hey Kay, are you there? Are the brownies too much?
Probably muted us and gone off to do something more
I'm
important.
here.
Oh, is she?
I haven't had
Hello.
any brownies. I haven't made any brownies.
Yeah, Kay's been getting into baking recently.
Hey, leave me alone.
Everyone.
It's been working.
She's made cookies.
I made cookies and cinnamon rolls.
She made
Yes.
cookies for everybody in the town hall. Right?
No, she ate them all.
I did eat them all.
I'll move on. So, what's it? Will the avoid pain rule prevent antags from completing their objectives in a violent way, such as attacking the RD with a toolbox or a teleport vest instead of stealing it? No. The goal of that rule is not to prevent antags from doing things, especially antags that need pain. Like, for example, you have to hurt yourself as a blood cultist. That's fine. That's part of technically your quote-unquote job as an antag. Let me repeat the aspect of the avoid pain rule. What's it? Yeah, so with the avoid pain rule, you are allowed to experience pain as part of your job, and that includes antag shit. So if there's a failing engine, you are allowed to stop that as an engineer because that literally has to happen as an engineer. As an antag, you're allowed to do things like, if, for example, you get into a fight with security, you're allowed to risk your life when they start firing lethals at you in order to, do your job, which is being an antag. You're allowed to experience pain as an antag. Also on this topic, there is a further question. Will the avoid pain rule prevent security from dealing with threats which are more likely or not than going to harm them, such as hollow parasites, going through a breach to stun a bomber, etc.? So again, the point of the avoid pain rule is that you can still experience pain as part of your job, and that includes security. Security is a very painful job. You signed up and are doing the job, knowing that you could possibly get hurt or killed or anything of the nature. So that again, the point of the rule of avoid pain is not to be like, ouch, you got a boo boo. You have to drop everything you're doing to go to med bay and then role play there for 20 minutes. No, that's not the goal. The goal is not to like you can look at the examples. Rush at the
Right.
wizard the moment he's seen
Yeah,
with a
it's like
toolbox to valid him.
run into situations where you know that you're going to get screwed up, or the chance of getting screwed up is very high compared to the reward of or why you're doing it. If you have no good reason to do it, why would you do it? Why would you risk your life for it?
Yeah. So this one particular example that was very controversial, I'd say it's the most controversial example on the entire document, was that it said as a bad example of avoiding pain was accepting surgery without anesthetic. And this one was controversial for a lot of things. Yes, Dick Steele asks, it is to prevent funny assistant doing unprotected EVA travel just because they drank cryoxidone. Unless they had a very good emergency or reason for doing so, they should not be just space traveling simply because they have a chem in them. That's still going to be painful as a character. So the change of accepting surgery without anesthetic was a controversial one. I will say that is most likely going to actually be adjusted code-wise, which is a thing on other servers where you don't want to code-wise do surgery on somebody without anesthetic. And I know a lot of people don't like anesthetic in regards to you literally can't control your character. You're dead asleep. You have no way of getting out of it. That is controversial. But I'm going to say that's more going to be adjusted code-wise, but it's in there as just an example for it stands.
But
There
it
will
also,
go on.
Sorry, it adds another aspect of gameplay though. It adds a feature of medical doctor antag, which is good. That if you get someone in surgery, you can basically like plant a bomb in them and leave them a note and stuff like this. Like it adds more variety if anesthetic is part of the norm of procedures. I think it should be seen as a good thing and as a bad thing. Like it's a pain in the ass, but at the same time, it opens the doors to more different things. It's good and bad, but obviously, I'll leave that to you.
Going into surgery and asking not to have anesthetics so you can watch over your gear and watch what happens to you is power game.
What's it? Yeah. Wedge brings up like make surgery with no anesthetic, deal damage. It's code solutions like that that are going to be looked into where you're going to be encouraged code wise to do it.
Yeah, there'll be encouragements code wise to make you use anesthetic. So it would it would be enforced basically that you'd have to use surgery, otherwise you wouldn't be able to do it. So you have to use anesthetic.
Let's say, as it stands, let's say there's a big emergency. Like, for example, you have an alien inside of you and you have to do ghetto surgery to remove it. That is an emergency. And I would say the surgery would be a lot less painful than having your stomach explode and you die because of the alien popping out. So that would be fine as it stands. That's one example of something that takes greater priority over the pain of surgery. Will ghetto surgery still be allowed? Talking about all the things we talked about, jobs, etc., emergencies, etc. Yes, it will be still allowed under the certain situations. What's it? And it's still going to be, in regards to the pain rule, we've talked about an easy ghetto anesthetic that could exist with other like ghetto surgery methods, so it all works out together. Yeah, a code solution would definitely take priority over this, but this is an example. Is there any other questions? There's a lot of code solutions that can go about this. Like, there's a lot of ideas that people like talk about. Like, I like the idea of local anesthetic. That'll make sure people don't have their life snuffed out just because they had the audacity to get surgery. Talking about alcohol being good enough for like emergency surgeries, drinking a lot of hard alcohol. There's a lot of code adjustments, and I think they'll be doable. If anybody has any suggestions in regards to that, they can either suggest it to a coder or Jamie. They can make a bounty over it, or they can even make a document over however they want to do it. But going forward, we don't want people just being like, "Hey, I want an augment," and then they get on the table, strip, and just have a chit chat while the guy literally rips off his arm. That's kind of a bit absurd. For avoiding pain rule, what about dipping into space to escape certain situations, like running from a beach or a breach to escape noopies or escape from perma? Space hurts. The goal is that you don't just run into space literally because, like for some reason, like let's say you just want to literally just avoid sec, right? But with that being said, there's still going to be situations where you can do things like that. Running away from nukies or running through an area, like let's say you're hurt and you need to get to med bay and there's a breach between you and med bay. You can go through that breach because the end goal is you getting help. That's fine. If that situation occurs. Escaping from perma.
Situation, escaping a floor clone.
Yeah. Things like that. What's it? Escaping from perma will still be fine because I would say that temporary pain of escaping from space is a lot better than spending the rest of your life in a nanotrazen prison. That sounds pretty awful. I know there's some code adjustments that need to be made with regards to escaping from perma because things like windows being stronger, monster most airlocks, things like that. They all make escaping perma pretty much impossible right now, but that's a code issue.
Hashtag code issue.
We'll move to the next one. Good news, Yogs, are almost done. Oh, specifically another avoid pain rule. I'll just touch on this. How will avoid pain rule apply to attacking simple mobs such as mobs in ruins, cargo shuttle loans? Again, you are allowed to take pain as part of your job. So, for example, if you are a miner, fighting simple mobs in Lava Land, that is fine. If you get hurt doing so, you don't have to run up for a boo-boo. You can still continue to fight. That is all pain expected of your job. In regards to if like your cargo shuttle gets taken up by spiders, that's kind of part of your job. You can either get, for example, security to deal with it. That would be preferable. Or you could deal with it yourself because you're technically cleaning up your shuttle so you can use it again as part of your job. You can still attack megafauna, yes, as a miner. Nothing in regard
If you're
is going to
prepared
change
for
that.
it.
Yeah. One thing that's incredibly painful is the life of an Ashwalker. They have to do things like run with spears at like Goliaths and megafauna and etc. And they die a lot. And that is still going to be okay. That's like part of the Ashwalker design. You obviously should not waste lives as an Ashwalker. You should not literally treat your life as a joke as an Ashwalker, and you should not like hurt your Ashwalker like tribe. But you will still be able to unga dunga at things as an Ashwalker.
Unga.
So moving on. How will the rules we currently have, not the RP ones, be enforced harder to encourage higher roleplay? Asked by Spooter. Is he here? No. So as it stands, there are a lot of rules that are overlapping with the old or the existing rules plus RP rules. That is okay. Some, as we go forward, some of these RP rules will be merged into the main rules. Some of them like already kind of say the same thing, so they'll be combined. Some will take precedent over an existing rule. As it stands, you should going forward, the existing rules will still be enforced, and certain aspects will be enforced harder. Like for example, generally the ones that will be enforced harder are talked about in the document. For example, we already have a rule about metagaming and meta knowledge, but it's gone way more into detail and way harsher in the RP document. That's how things are going to be enforced harsher going forward. And things will be adjusted over time. I'm going to move on to the next question. Are there any plans to replace the now approaching TG station message that plays upon joining the station? Something more appropriate, like now approaching Yogstation. Would Yoga or any of the council be willing to share their voice to fix this detail? Yes, so this has been attempted before.
I would be happy to voice random stuff.
Yeah, we're all happy to voice things like that. I would actually really like that to be replaced.
Not gonna lie, I don't think we should call the station Yogstation. I see it just doesn't make sense. Unless someone can think of some amazing law reason for it to make sense that it is called Yogstation.
Now approaching the station or some such.
It can be replaced with anything. I would say practically anything is better than now approaching TG Station because we're literally not TG Station.
I agree.
Swiss talked about this. He He tried to do it, but there was issues with the audio and getting it to mesh. But any council are willing to give our voices for this thing. So if you need our voice, just PM us, and we can work towards changing that. Here's one we've already touched on. Are fun projects that are a bit power gaming in nature now banned? For example, can an Atmos no longer build the flamethrower for fun? Can robos not build death robots because they're or death bots and death mechs because they're neat? Can miners not freely tote their deadly relics? So we've talked about this. A gimmick that can kind of stretch the nature of what your job is can be allowed, and depending on the situation, as long as it adds towards the round in some faculty. You should not be, for example, intent definitely matters with this. You should not be, for example, building a thing like a death mech for the sake of if there's any antags, I'm going to shove right up there with my mech and kill them, or flashbang them over and over, or anything like that. That's not the goal. The goal is not also that you just power game literally whatever you want and call it a gimmick. That's not good either. So you will still be allowed to do gimmicks. We talked about this earlier with like clown and mimes and chaplains. They are still allowed to do gimmicks as long as they add to a round. And the goal is to not do anything that just completely supersedes somebody else's game or their job. So, for example, as a clown, you should not build a strictly better med bay just because you can, or even as an engineer. You can boost up med bay or things like that, but you should not build like your own chem lab because you want to make the chems over the chemists, etc.
This includes building your own research station in the engineering lobby just because you can.
Yes. That is, unless you really have to, because of a very low pop thing, you should not be doing that. Better yet, if there's no scientists, you can literally get like an AI or a Borg to do so. For the new rules guidelines, what is the expectation of security? We've talked about this. They will still basically have the same expectations, aside from a little bit adjustments regarding letting antags, certain gimmicks like holding people hostage, as long as they're not just using that as an excuse to weasel out of gameplay. Security will still be the primary focus, dealing with antags, dealing with criminals, etc., etc. Detectives, is extremely noticeable when all of security is sitting in brig doing nothing, or simply patrolling around and ignoring people using their dying breaths to alert crew via comms that they're being dragged away attacked. Going forward, this is something that I've noticed on RP, other RP servers. You should not. This is the opposite extreme. You should not be using RP as an excuse to never do your job. In the sense that, like, you cannot, if people are literally dying to antags as a security officer, or let's say you're a security officer and people are dying all over due to antag behavior. You cannot justify saying, I'm just going to sit in the bar and have a chit chat because we're having a good conversation, etc., etc. Of course, this is not like you absolutely cannot do anything besides your job, but you should not be totally ignoring your job simply because you want to favor roleplay. Yeah, that's not RP, that's bad RP. You should still play your role in some faculty. How much knowledge does the department sec know of their departments, like a officer assigned to medical, for example? Have we talked about this? I don't think we did. As it stands, they should still be an officer, even if they were assigned to medical.
They're
Like,
doing
just
security in medical. They're not doing medical as a
Yeah.
security officer.
Yeah. That can maybe be discussed as kind of like a feature, but as it stands, that's not really a thing.
They may have picked up a tiny bit of first aid because they're surrounded by them. They would not be able to do full surgery.
Basically, they shouldn't be doing the job if there's competent medical people there to do it for
Yeah.
them.
Okay. We'll go to the next question. Is there any plan to address the current state of low pop rounds, poor spread of jobs? So we've talked about this. In regards to the RP rules, there's obviously exceptions and things of that nature for situations where there's literally nobody able to fill that job. That's still going to be relatively the same in low pop rounds and rounds with very limited slots. The goal still going to be forward is that if there's somebody available for that job, it should be always defaulted to letting them do that job, barring extreme emergencies. So it's going to be similar to how it is now in regards to low pop when there's just a bad spread of jobs. One particular bad spread is, let's say it's a normal pop round, let's say 40 to 50 or something, 30 to 50.
And there
let's
is
say
one
for
security officer.
yes, there's one officer or no officers, and for some reason everybody decided to roll shit like
Scientist.
assistant. Yeah. In regards to that, that's going to be a large part on people being going forward. If you want if you want a normal round, and a normal round consists of security stopping and tags, you should consider queuing up more as security and roles of that like nature. What you should not do is just roll assistant anyway and being like, oh, there's no security officers, so now I can be a security officer light because there's nobody to do the job. That's not what we're looking for either. We're specifically looking for people to give a better spread in order for those jobs to be done, because we are going to be enforcing that you stick within your lane more. Does anybody have anything else to add to that, or I'm going to move on? And tag rep, yeah. So there could be a lot of coded ways to encourage people to play security officer. One of the intention of these rules is not to make it shittier to be officer. I feel like these rules in a lot of ways will actually help it actually be better to play officer, especially with preventing people from just being absolute shitheads to them for basically no reason. I'm going to move on to the next one. So they ask, can wardens make motion detectors and bartenders make rage cages? In generic terms, can any job craft some object related to help them with their job, or they use a part of their job? So we're not here to kill all gimmicks, but at the same time, you should be defaulting to other letting people do their jobs, right? So if there's somebody able to build something or craft something of that nature, you should default to that. But at the same time, we want people to still be able to do their jobs. Like customizing your bar is part of a bartender's job. They get supplies, metal, wire, things like that, in order to customize their bar how they like. So it's gonna be a little. It's gonna be a little bit iffier with things like electrified grills for a rage cage and et cetera, et cetera. But like on a base level, you'll still be able to build things related to your job. You should not push it further and invalidate other jobs by doing anything you want that you need. If that makes sense.
I'd also say ask first.
Yes.
Just because you can build a rage cage doesn't mean that your first thought should be, I'm going to build a rage cage, it's going to be huge and it's going to be fun. At least ask the engineers if they want to help out first.
Yeah.
Engineers get bored as well.
What's it? I think that's basically it for that. Does anybody have anything else to add on regards to that? My Discord is pooping itself.
Oh, my power's flickered on and off a few times.
This is can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So this is completely unrelated to this town hall, but I'm gonna make a point while I have a bunch of staff listening to me and a bunch of players, right? This is something that I have a real big problem with, and I try to snuff it out at any point that I can. And my God, Discord is still killing itself. If you are an admin, and let's say there is a help related to an officer, you need to do as much investigating as possible before you start boinking an officer for basically anything, unless you directly need to interfere immediately. Like, for example, he's actively harm batoning somebody. You can immediately deal with that. What I absolutely hate, and I will absolutely snuff out at all costs, is people being like, they get an A help, an assistant is complaining about an officer doing things wrongly, and they immediately boink the officer without even checking a log, reading, looking at a replay, or like trying to piece together the situation at all. The thing that we're not going for, we will never go for, is just interrupting officers the moment they do anything for any reason, because people are capable of making like invalid A helps, and we should not resolve the invalid A help by just immediately questioning the officers for 10 minutes. That's stupid, and that's just kind of shitty. You need to do the investigation before you boink anybody, unless you have a reason to just immediately interrupt them. Like you can see it. Like, let's say you can see the fact that they have somebody put in a cell permanently, all because they trespassed. That's you can see that. That's evidence, right? But you should not just like you get an A help, somebody claims they're doing something improperly, and you just be like, can you explain to me the last 20 minutes? Because you can, and I'm an admin and I'm too fucking stupid to investigate the situation myself, despite it being my job. So we're going to, if you see that, I want you to probably make an admin complaint if that happens. If it's clear to you as a player that they put zero effort into actually investigating the situation, yes, you can quote me on that. If you have to be careful though, because they might have actually investigated. But if in your mind they put zero effort into actually investigating the situation at all, and just defaulted to you getting boinked over and over and over, and had to explain the last 20 minutes without them doing any investigation on their own, then you can make an admin complaint. Of course, it might be resolved differently because they might have actually done some investigation behind the scenes. We're going to look into that. But they should not just be making you interrupt your round to type 15 minutes unless you've done something extremely bad. Like, for example, if for some reason you harm batoned a prisoner to death, and they interrupt you to be like, can you explain yourself? That's probably fine, because you probably shouldn't have harmed batoned to death, right? But going forward, I just want to make that abundantly clear. We do not want to just make officer. The goal is to make officer playing fun, and I want to snuff out admins making that impossible. So, what if it's a lizard? Admins are allowed to, smite him, insta-gib him, whatever. Just kidding. I'm gonna move to the next question. We're almost done here. This was nice and shorter town hall, and I'll still be around to answer any further questions. I'll talk in detail about what's the plan going forward in regards to the RP rules, but let's keep going. How will Yogs move forward to determine if these rules are even right for us? I'm assuming there will be more community involvement to see what we like or don't like about these systems. Will the code base change to facilitate these new changes? We've talked about how the code base will change going forward, so I don't really need to address that. Council and staff are definitely listening to player feedback in regards to this. This is a document that I've already factored heavily into people's opinions, especially staff opinions, whether it's enforceable, whether it's fun, whether it's even compatible with Yogs. I think as it stands, I really tried to make these rules as compatible as possible with current Yogs players, current Yogs rules, current Yogs mentality, and things like that. They still change things, but I try to make them as compatible as possible. I didn't just yoink the Aurora Station rules and said, "Here you go, Yogs, deal with it." That would be stupid. So, but we will be getting feedback. Going forward, you'll be able to post feedback, ask questions in places like Staff Public. You'll be able to just PM questions on things like that. If you have a concern or you really notice something's not working, let's say there's certain aspect about the RP rules and you're like, this is just not working with this game mode or something like that, then that can be brought up. So just keep that in mind going forward. We will be listening to feedback, making adjustments. Right now, I would like to just see people try these out before just being like, this is shit, I hate it, it's garbage, get rid of it, I want normal. I really want you guys to try it out going forward. I really think it's compatible. Does anybody have anything else to add?
Apparently, J-Cat's voice is cute.
JK's not even here. Damn. Or is he? I don't think he is.
Have we got any more questions?
We have the last approved question, and I think it's already been answered. How will things be handled regarding general threats to the station and power gaming? So that has been answered.
Yeah.
I'll just briefly summarize. The goal is still for security officers to stop direct threats to the station, but there will be a decrease in people dealing with the direct threats themselves in regards to that. We're not looking to just have valid hunt everything, no matter what it is, no matter the situation. That will be clamped down upon. It's specifically outlined in detail in the rules. We're looking for antags to engage in RP, and likewise, we want people to experiment with engaging RP back at the antags. And there is specifically a thing. The goal of the game is not to stop the antagonists at all costs, nor is it the goal for antagonists to green text at all costs. Of course, security are still very much allowed to enforce space law, and that will definitely deal with antags if they are committing crimes and murdering people, etc. Right? But the goal is not, I'm so and so. I'm not even an officer. My goal is to make sure there is not one vampire who green text at all. That's not the goal of the game. That's not even fun. I think you'll find that the game will actually be more interesting and more fun if we actually all work together, antag or not, in order to make a round more enjoyable, memorable, and unique in that regard, rather than just snuffing out the antags and having the next hour and 30 be extended. But with that being said, I know there's still going to be situations like a Malf AI flooding that can be stopped. That is literally a life-threatening threat. There specifically the rule exempts some modes. It specifically exempts nuclear emergency, Xenos, and Blob are excluded from stopping antags at all costs. Clock Cult and Blood Cult are currently excluded pending game mode changes when they happen. They are excluded in regards to you can't really RP in those modes, to be honest. I also really like what Tog says. This is not ranked PvP Space Station 13. This is a multiplayer storytelling with actual role play. Play role, We all have roles to play. Also, yeah. So that's my thoughts on it. Does anybody have anything else to add? Will you get banned for posting too many cat pictures like last time? I don't remember you ever getting banned for posting cat pictures. If there's no response to that, we have officially concluded the approved questions, and we will stick around for a bit in order to answer any further questions, any questions that just came up, any last minute questions, anything like that.
I think there's an issue, Yoga, where there's a few questions which haven't been added to the approved questions, which haven't really gone through yet. Like there's really a few questions that haven't been looked at. So I just want to make sure that you might just want to quickly glance through and see if there's anything worth mentioning.
And no, we are not re-inviting ARDT to this server just for the sake of people who want to hear his voice.
I think technically he's still in the server, but
I don't care.
Yeah, no plans for that.
No one wants to relive the last town hall.
So in terms of the questions in the queue but aren't approved, there's a question about projects that are power gaming. We've already talked about that like 3 times. Or no, I did answer that one. With the new RP rules, will Atmos be allowed to make meme shitter gases without being valid or having a need for them? Atmos can still make gases. They can make gases as part of their job. There's nothing clamping down on that. You can make stupid gases all you want, as long as the goal is, not to take that gas and, I don't know, flood the hallway because there exists traitors in an area. Still exists from the other rules. still exists within valid hunting, etc., etc. But you're allowed to do your job. Even if your job is really extreme, like crazy Atmos gases, you're still allowed to do your job. That will not change. Okay. So lately on medium to high part rounds, departments like medical and security have started understaffed, which sucks when people are dying left and right and no one's able to do anything. Can we expect in the future to have more people forcibly re-rolled from their current role preferences to fill in slots at the start of rounds? So there are no plans to force people to play jobs. Like you queued up for assistant, and the game's like, haha, no, you're officer. There's nothing like that planned. But with that being said, again, we're going forward. People are going to be more stuck in their lanes. So you should not queue up for assistant, for example, and then be like, oh, I'll just be some sort of officer in some faculty because there is none. Or I'm an assistant and I see that medical is lacking, so I'm just going to act as like a CMO in terms of my powers. No, that's not going to be the case going forward. There's going to be a lot more encouraging of you to diversify what jobs you play. We're looking for more people to play officer, and like I said earlier, I'm going to be heavy clamping down on admins being shitheads and making it absolutely intolerable to play officer within reason. So definitely start looking up to queue for other jobs. I think you'll find that certain jobs will actually be a lot better, like officer, with these new rules in place. Any further questions of that? How does the pain rule apply to Paternus and augmented people, specifically for surgery? That's a very good question. I don't think there's any actual pain or hurt or damage values associated with Paternus applying augments directly, correct? I don't think there's anything of the case. So I wouldn't say that falls under the yeah, please stop spamming images. Especially in fucking Roblox. What's it? In terms of pain, if it doesn't actually inflict pain, you don't necessarily have to think about it in terms of how does it apply to the pain rule. So a Paternus putting in an augment doesn't actually cause them physical harm, so we don't need to consider it in terms of the like pain rule. Okay, Marmio, you are asking about player references questions. Can you repeat it so I understand the question fully? Should player references be kept in the game or removed is the question. I know this is specifically about the Wizard Academy. In terms of RP changes, this to me doesn't have bearing on RP. I wouldn't call it low RP or high RP or anything to have player references. So in terms of RP changes, that's not really going to change. In terms of whether we want them as a whole, I personally don't care, but I know a lot of people do care, and I don't know if I have a real strong opinion one way or the other. Does anybody have anything to say about this?
Which one, sorry?
People player references being in game, such as the Wizard Academy, being all named players with tweaks, etc.
That's, I mean, up to you really. I don't really care, mind. It's depending if you want to, how much you want to uniquify us and stuff, or if you want players to be in the game, OCD or whatever. But it's up to you. It should be a council issue probably. No, well, it's not really a council issue. It's kind of just like a how much memory do you want in the actual game? So
Yeah. There have been bad examples of player references, and then there are examples that really aren't harmful at all, and then there's some good examples. One example I feel is really not harmful at all. I think it's still a thing, right? The ladder next to the Goat King arena I believe there's a minor corpse named Lina Lavas, which is a former player on Yogs. If you don't know that, that doesn't affect you. You just think it's a normal corpse. So that doesn't really hurt anybody. If you do know it, you do remember Lina, then you're like, oh, cool, I remember that player. There are bad examples, like Rotsiv the Dented. That was a bit weird. I'm going to type weird so everybody knows what emote I'm talking about. And then for me, the Wizard Academy is, I don't know. I understand why people don't like it. So as it stands, I'm leaving that up to the player base to really think about that, whether they want that. And that's ultimately also a coder thing and a Jamie thing for making the decision to merge or not merge something of that nature. If it got really bad, like all of a sudden it was actually on the station, some player references, that would be a little too much. I would start clamping down on that. As for just a random ruin in space, I didn't mind. So that's my take. Yeah, okay, so Cuban Pete's just one of those where people don't even no one here even knows the actual Cuban Pete. So that's like actual like that's degenerated into actual just Space Station 13 normalcy. Is it okay for, say, a trader to destroy the hand telly despite another trader that has the hand telly objective? You will still be allowed to do what you want as a trader, barring, murder bone, the RP rules, etc., etc. So I would say none of the rules would say you cannot do something like destroy the hand telly despite another trader. I would say as a trader, you are still going to be allowed to kill a trader on the basis of he literally could have the objective to kill you. You have to worry about things like that. Yeah, as Reed puts it, cucking your fellow traders is just part of the game. That's something you have to operate on being a trader. Let's see, any more questions? Let's see. Will Malf trader AIs get some leeway in how aggressive they can be in their attacks efforts, even if they're lower RP? Given Malfs tend to go from 0 to 100 really quick, and risk having the entire crew breaking down their set if they don't take extreme measures. So, Malf AIs are still going to, because of the nature of how Malf AI is played, they don't really have hands or the ability to do things direct on. Like, they have limited ways they can discreetly murder somebody. That's why they've always been historically allowed to do things like mass murder bone, etc., etc. Trader AIs by a council vote were made different. They have to work towards their objectives, and they're not allowed. They don't have things like the doomsday device, etc., etc. They will still be relatively same with like Malf AIs. They will still be allowed to mass murder bone. They don't have to, like, that's one of those things where roleplay wouldn't even really add anything. It would actually make it worse for them if they started roleplaying being Malf, and then people took that as an opportunity just to curb stomp them. So they will still be allowed to murder bone, and in turn, crew will be allowed to deal with that as necessary, depending on how things are escalated. What about, Alex Carr asks, what about traders ignoring objectives to kill each other to instead murderbone all of Sec because one of them has hijacked? Let me take a drink.
Fun fact, Malfunction has 8% win rate in the last 30 days.
Damn.
8. 8%.
Traders, as it stands, are allowed to assist with hijack on the basis of they don't want to be the ones even remotely construed to interfere with hijack and then subsequently killed. Of course, traders are allowed to see another trader who claims he has hijack and stop him if it for some interferes with their plans. But as it stands, traders are allowed to work with other traders in order to help hijack, just for the sake of things being smooth sailing for traders. Going forward, that's going to be an iffy topic because we don't want it to just end up, just like, using that as an excuse just to be like, well, I got my dually sword, let's start killing. I'm going to get back to you on that going forward. I would say for now, we're going to default to how it is now, where if you are a trader and another trader has hijack, you are allowed to assist him in that hijack. If you are a trader and you don't have hijack, but you tell another trader you have hijack, and then you work towards hijacking, you will definitely get in trouble for that. Mib asks, Ronan asks, we covered suicide round start as assistant. Yeah, that's going to not be kosher going forward because you want to keep your job. If you want to not play the round, you need to go to cryo and do cryo like that. Mib asks, opinion on whitelisted non-human heads. So this has been brought up before in a forum thread. Probably it's never going to be a whitelist. It's never going to be a whitelist because that seems rather arbitrary to allow specific human heads. As it stands, I'm not really in favor of it either. I think it's perfectly fine having it be an icy issue with the HOP or the captain promoting a non-human head as they so choose to fill a particular role. That comes into conflict with, for example, if you promote a lizard to CMO and then a human CMO shows up, that can cause an IC conflict or even an out-of-character conflict. Generally, I'd say that works pretty smoothly. We don't need to really do anything about that. But I don't particularly see I think it actually works fine as it is and still adds for gameplay wise for non-humans to remain as not able to be heads. What I've suggested as a compromise in the past is that non-humans are allowed to play very specific heads like CMO and something like maybe even CE. I would not say that it would not be fine in my mind for them to be, for example, RD, because that they would have the ability to change the AI's laws from, for example, Asimov, despite them not even being protected under Asimov. I find that a bit crazy. So likewise, with them being captain or HOP, who are able to also give them, either modify the AI's laws or give access to modify the AI's laws. Things like HOS 2, because HOS involves like actively like killing other people or harming other people who might be humans while you are a lizard HOS. It's a can of worms that I don't really necessarily think opens much of anything, but I would totally be on board with things specifically like the CMO and CE being allowed to be non-humans. That would be cool. As it stands, I'm fine with it more just being the IC issue of the captain promoted non-human to head, and then whatever happens, happens. Maybe not as extreme as that one time where, it escalated all the way to Death Squad, but that's just me not being able to control myself, so. Does anybody have anything else they want to add to this? There's a lot of questions going on right now. Here's a question from Mesa, semi-serious. It's quite minor, but admin spawning on Syntcom being forced into human, space racism and all. I've talked about this with the admin team. Bus is also going to be subject to some similar rules in regards to moving forward with hierarchy. For example, admins should not be using CentCom announcements to post literal nonsense. They should not be using CentCom announcements to post yoggers. This is not technically a rule, but going forward, it would be encouraged that admins have a dedicated CentCom role or person that they announce things for better continuity. And definitely, admin tools should not be used in such a way like CentCom announcements that just detract from RP. Like, for example, like there's a problem with antags going on, so you say "ya ye ye," whatever fuck you want to say. Just admins are going to be going forward with things like that. Jamie says CentCom doesn't employ lizards. That is true. As it stands, this is going to be something with lore, the lore boys. Of course, this can change with the lore team that will be coming up and being worked with in regards to rules, things like that. Lore will have an actual bite going forward. I'll just say that. But as it stands, CentCom doesn't employ lizards or non-humans. You can cryo at round start if you don't want to play. You obviously shouldn't be antag fishing. That's always going to be against the rules. To only play the game when you get antag and otherwise leave. That would not going to be okay, and no matter what faculty you do it. But you can cryo around start. If you, for example, really roll the job you don't like and you're not looking like you're going to be able to change it, you can cryo.
Yoga, quick question about the cryoing.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed recently that some people cryo out of a round because they know the round. For example, War Ops. I see a lot of people run to cryo and be like, "Fuck this! I'm going to go cryo," and maybe try and get like a nuki spawn or something. What's going to be happening with that?
So that's a really delicate issue because if it's War Ops, right, it's a certain balance of there can't be so many people who just play because the nuke ops will obviously need reinforcements, Borgs, etc. Right? So they do need some ghosts, but it's also completely stupid to have 10 people quit their life and then have 10 ghosts available to get the nuke ops role because they know they're going to be getting that role. So going forward, it's like a delicate balance because there's a balance of they need ghosts, but they also shouldn't have 10 people leave the crew just because War Ops was announced. It's different if you literally don't want to play War Ops, like you were looking for a peaceful mode, and then it's War Ops, so you're like, I just wanted to grow plants as botany. I'm going to leave this round. That's different. But if it's clear that you are literally just nuke op fishing, that's a bit of a no-no. You need, like, of course they need ghosts, but you should not be leaving in droves and fucking up the balance of the game. Give me 1 second.
Fun fact: Clan Ops have 100% win rate in the last 30 days.
Out of how many rounds?
3.
There you go.
Okay, moving forward. If
Is there anything more in the queue we haven't looked at?
there are so many questions going on right now, what
Yeah,
will happen?
have we sorted the queue out first?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm done with the queue. I'm the queue's pretty much answered. I'm now answering the questions
Chat.
that pop up when I get pinged. So here's an important one. What's where the fuck did it go? What will happen to busts like Moja Manly phasing through walls and shit? I'm probably gonna have to stop doing Moja in certain faculties. That was always like a thing that had a degree of non-seriousness to it, and I did it for fun and make the round more interesting. I think going forward, it could still make the round more interesting, but I have gotten complaints about it for people who find it detracting from the round. My goal with any of my busts is not to detract from the round, it's to like improve the round. So I haven't really made my mind up on that, nor has anybody particularly confronted me about that. But again, like I said, the goal of bus going forward, admin bus, will to be to improve the round and to improve the RP, at least at minimum, not detract from the RP.
Yeah,
Right.
Lason's put a good solution forward. If you wear a ghost sheet, it makes it completely RP friendly.
Oh yes. Um. Well, I still do things like the Simpcom official family that you proceeded to brutally murder in cold blood. I don't recall ever doing that.
Fun fact: Mojo Manley helped me for killing him once as a Borg.
Yes.
Because you killed me when I was human.
You weren't human. Mojo Manley's not human.
If I am a carbon human, and then you beat me to death, and I don't even fight back or have not even done human harm, that is in fact human harm. Either way,
Humans can't
created you
phase through
3
walls.
times. Humans can't phase through walls. It's not in the It's not in the fucking Asimov table.
Chrono Legionnaires?
Anyway, if this is just dissolving into whether or not Mojo Manley is human or not, I may disappear.
He's
Do we
not.
have any more serious questions?
He's
there's
not
a
human.
couple. Here's a random question. If somebody gets promoted to head job and somebody joins as said job later, who has greater authority? I would say that the norm should be, this is something definitely for like a standard operating procedure SOP document, but the general procedure should be that the person who has the actual job should take priority. In regards to like if there's two CEs, the person who is the actual CE should get priority over having the suit.
As in the one who got employed by CENTCOM, not given
Yes.
it by the HOP.
Yes. You can pray to Mojo Manley as Chapin Lin. Yes. Did we cover responding to a wizard as basic crew? Yes. So in the RP rules, it kind of specifically outlines that what's it? The goal is not to stop the antags at all costs, which is very easily doable depending on the situation as if they're the antag is a wizard, right? We are not looking for a wizard to exist. He's not murdered anybody. So the response of the crew is to break into chemistry and make the world's nastiest death mix and just like bean him while he's talking. We want antagonists to be able to RP, and specifically, there is a rule where that's it. 3.1 antagonists should engage in RP when possible. That also includes you should not try to get a trick and kill anybody while they are typing. If a wizard, this is going to be a thing where people have to really cooperate and actually work towards creating an interesting story rather than being you antag I unga dunga you to death. So you should not just you should not be like he's a wizard, therefore I get to kill him immediately. Of course, this changes if the wizard, has actively tried to murder people, and you cannot use RP as an excuse to get out of your gameplay conflicts. Like for example, if an officer is beating you down with shotgun shells and you have no escape, you have no jaunt, no blink as a wizard, and you're really fucked, you cannot be like, I'm creating an RP situation, and if you attack me, I will help, and the admins will get you good. That's not going to happen either. Like if, for example, the guy is shotgunning you because you've murdered all his coworkers, etc. Alex Carr asks, So the acting CE needs to step down when the real one arrives to replace the acting CE. So he doesn't necessarily need to step down if the real CE doesn't want him to, but in regards to who is the proper owner of the CE suit, who gets the CE tools, stuff like that,
He has the
that
authority.
is that is the actual Syncom employed CE. If for some reason the actual CE wants to have this like co-CE, he can do so. That is his choice, or the captain's
At
choice.
the end of the day, the HOP should really close the position if it's been filled.
Yes. Why did I do this? I don't see what I did. But I see you not wearing clothes, so I assume I spawned you into the SM chamber. Because I can. That's why I did it.
Oh,
Okay.
I see. Good point.
Here's a very
Go on.
important question. When are these new rules coming into effect? They're going to be going into effect basically right after this town hall. They're not going it's not going to be they're in effect and you're immediately going to get like fucked hard by admins for small little issues. Where it's going to be a gradual thing of like it's going to be enforced harsher and not harsher. I don't want to say harsher, but we're going to enforce it. There's going to be consequences for not following it. I want to point out specifically it is divided. I'm going to adjust the document and make sure it's clear. It is divided into rules and guidelines. Rules have to be followed. They are rules. Guidelines are suggestions. They are suggestions for how to go about things. They are not enforced.
So I think what's going to probably happen is you might get a few more boinks, but not necessarily notes for stuff because obviously, yeah, it's more of us saying, "Hey, this is a new thing. Make sure you follow it," kind of thing. We're not necessarily going to note you, but
I would say you could probably just chill on the player complaints, but going forward, you will be able to player complaint people not following these things within reason. XOX says, I am ending the recording. Any objections? Yes, you can end the recording. We're coming this meeting to a close.